You know that feeling when you're the last passenger on a night bus? The driver's eyes are tired red slits in the rearview mirror. The fluorescent tubes above flicker just enough to make everything look slightly wrong. Your phone is at 3%, no signal, and the road outside is nothing but black fields, and the occasional dead moth splattered against the glass like a tiny exploded star. I was that last passenger on the 217 from Multan to Bahawalpur. Seat 28 all the way at the back. The bus was maybe 30% full when it left the terminal, but by the time we passed the last petrol pump, only 4 of us remained. Me, an old woman in a white dupatta who hadn't moved in 40 minutes. A thin man in a cheap suit holding a plastic folder against his chest like it was a shield. And the boy. The boy sat 2 rows ahead of me, aisle seat. Maybe 13. School uniform still on even though it was long past midnight. Navy blazer, white shirt, tie loosened like he'd been choking on it all day. He kept turning his head very slowly toward the window, then back to the front over and over. Mechanical, like a doll whose spring was running down. I didn't think much of it at first. Around 3:40 a.m., the old woman stood up without warning. She walked straight to the front, leaned over the driver's shoulder, and whispered something. The driver nodded once. No words. She returned to her seat, sat down, folded her hands and died. I mean, she just stopped. No slump, no rattle, no dramatic fall. 1 second breathing, next second not. Her dupatta stayed perfectly arranged over her head like she'd planned the pose. The thin man in the suit noticed a few minutes later. He stood up, touched her shoulder, then jerked his hand back like he'd touched dry ice. He looked at me. I looked at him. Neither of us spoke. The boy didn't even turn around. The driver didn't stop. He just kept driving, slower now, headlights cutting weaker and weaker tunnels through the dark. I checked my phone again. Still 3%, still no bars. But the clock was still moving. 3:51. 3:52. At 4:07 the boy finally spoke. Not loud. Not to us. He spoke to the empty seat beside him. You promised we'd reach before far. Silence. Then again softer. You promised. The man in the suit whispered to me, barely audible. Bye. That seat was empty the whole time. I nodded. I'd noticed. The boy turned his head, very slowly this time, and looked directly at me. His eyes were completely black. Not dark irises. Black like spilled ink that had drowned the whites too. He smiled with only the left half of his mouth. She's still here, he said. She just changed seats. My stomach dropped through the floor. The old woman's body was still sitting upright. But now her head was turned toward the boy. Not far, just enough for the neck to look wrong. Like it had rotated 30 degrees more than necks should. The thin man started praying under his breath, fast and stumbling. The boy stood up. He didn't walk like a child. Each step was too smooth, too deliberate, like something wearing a child costume. He stopped in the aisle right beside the dead woman, bent at the waist until his face was level with hers, and whispered, Your stop was 2 towns ago. Then he reached out and very gently closed her already closed eyes with 2 fingers. That was when the lights died. Complete dark. Not even the faint glow from the instrument panel up front. Just the sound of tires on asphalt and my own heartbeat slamming against my ribs. Someone, maybe the driver, made a low animal sound. Then the boy's voice again, now from somewhere much closer to me. She needed company for the rest of the way. I felt cold fingers brush the back of my neck. Not hard, just enough to let me know they were there. I didn't scream, couldn't. My throat had locked. The boy kept talking, calm, almost polite. She likes the back seat best. More quiet, more private. I felt the seat beside me dip. Not much, just the smallest creak of old vinyl taking weight. Something sat down. I didn't look, couldn't, but I could smell it. Old cotton, rose attergon sour, and something underneath like wet copper coins. The bus slowed. Not to stop, just slowed, like it was moving through water now. The boy's voice came from the front of the aisle again. Next stop is yours. I felt the thing beside me lean closer. Its breath, if you could call it breath, was cold and slow against my ear. I still didn't look, but I heard it speak. Not in Urdu, not in any language I knew. Just a single soft syllable that felt like someone sliding a needle behind my left eyeball. The bus stopped. Doors hissed open. No light outside. No road. Just black. The boy said one last thing. She'll ride with you now. Until someone else takes the back seat. I stood up. Legs shaking so badly I almost fell. I walked down the aisle. Past the dead old woman whose head was now facing completely backward. Past the thin man who was crying without sound. Past the driver whose hands were still on the wheel, but whose head had dropped forward like a broken puppet. I stepped off. The doors closed behind me instantly. The bus pulled away. No headlights. No engine sound. Just gone. Like it had never existed. I stood in the middle of nothing. No road. No fields. No stars. Just black in every direction. My phone finally died. But in the last second before the screen went dark, I saw the time. For 19. Far was still 40 minutes away. And behind me, very softly, I heard the creak of vinyl, like someone shifting in the back seat, waiting for the next passenger. I still don't know how I walked out of that place. But sometimes when I'm alone in a vehicle at night, rickshaw, taxi, bus, I feel the seat beside me dip, just a little, and I never ever look, because I already know who's riding with me, until someone else takes the back seat. And